Yeah, so you were talking about, and I haven't listened to it yet, but you mentioned that your reading, what came up in your reading was setting your intentions,
Mm-hmm.
being really intentional in this period.
Mm-hmm.
And I was saying that I had heard the same thing. And so we were talking about how to make sure that you're open
Mm-hmm.
to what it is that you want. And if there's a piece to what you want, um, if there's a piece to what it is that you want that you're unclear about, you don't know what it is. You don't, like for me, I don't know where it is,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but I know what it is I want to experience. I know
Yeah.
the things that I want to see um, in my environment,
Mm-hmm.
the people, the relationships I want to see in my environment. And so, with the rest of it, the pieces that I don't know, I leave it open. I leave it open to be formed around the pieces that I have, instead of trying to force it or insist that it has to be. I have to make a choice. I have to
Mm-hmm.
choose, because then that muddies the water when I'm doing my visualizations,
Mm-hmm.
because there's a conflict.
Yeah. Yeah. I think for me especially because I'm one of those people that would be considered an overthinker. And I analyze all the details. I want to break it down. I want to go back. Well, let's review. Okay, well, let's compare to a year ago. What was that? And so I find myself being in a space where I'm wanting to manifest sometimes, where I get in that same kind of mode, and I'm like, okay, down to the details, and it can make what should be a very free and very flowing, very fun experience very stressful because then it's like, okay, um, what if we're talking about a space, it's like, okay, where where do I really want to be? Okay, well, what about it? Well, okay, well, that place is nice. This place over here is nice. Oh, well, what about? And then you get down to, okay, well, but I want to be like this and like this, and then maybe you narrow it down to one place that you think is going to be the perfect place, and you hone in so much on that, all the details, all the things. You find the perfect apartment, you find all the little pieces, right? And at the same time, as creative as you're being in that space, you kind of cut yourself off from your own magic because you're so drawn into just that one thing. And then I'll think about, okay, well, how is that going to happen? I'll think of a way that it'll happen, and then I'll just, you know, and so, but there's also a thing about being able to let go of control.
Right, right.
Right. And that can be a very vulnerable space for people to be. And it's not easy, especially in a world, in a society, in a time where you feel like your freedoms and many different manners are being challenged, to say, okay. But when you're willing to allow for that control or that need for control to only be to express it in a way where you're allowing that control to show up in the form of you controlling your your own mind, your own emotions, and the way that you're manifesting so you can stay open. It's the control that comes in controlling how you are in that situation to discipline yourself enough to say, okay, yeah, situationally or whatever, I may want to go into the detail and look and say, like, this is how it has to be. But there's another form of discipline that comes in letting go and being able to let go and being able to release. Um,
You know, I think you said a key word, discipline, and I think I'm not sure. I haven't looked at any cycles, but what I feel is I just came out of like a Saturnian cycle. So it was all about, I was in a fourth cycle.
Mm-hmm.
It was all about discipline.
Mm-hmm.
And if I wasn't willing to exercise it on myself, then I was having it exercised.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so that is key. Um,
Mm. But yeah, so in having that discipline, be able to let go and control even like that freedom. It's kind of like even water has bones, so to speak, right? Even water has a structure, a discipline to it, and
mm-hmm.
it is free flowing. You know what I mean? And so even like that, there's still a structure, a discipline that's needed to be able to let go, to release, to do all those things. Um, and it's an important lesson when you're manifesting, when you're working to allow something to come into your reality.
Mm-hmm.
And when you do let go, the question of, okay, well, where do I go? What state, what place, it's like you don't have to worry about any of that. Just like you said, focus on what it feels like, what you want the experience to be like, and the perfect opportunity will come to the perfect place that allows you to move gracefully with all the things in place that need to be there, and you don't have to worry about how or when or what or where or who or any of those things, because it naturally just happens. It's a natural occurrence.
And we're talking about this because we're in a seven cycle, a universal seven. And so the the energy and the way the energy is moving is about you manifesting from your mind, manifesting from your intent, um, from your heart. I would shy away from even saying your will. Your will is secondary in this, because the will is more masculine, and this is not that year. Um, this is not that cycle. And so there is a discipline in being at peace and even in celebration, regardless to what it looks like around you.
Mm-hmm.
There is a place for the details and that more masculine approach. There's definitely a place for it, especially when we talk about balance. But in this cycle, we have to become, well, shit, probably needed to have already become masters at
Mm-hmm.
being intentional in your vision, being in integrity with your word, um, cleaning yourself up.
You'll be in the act of doing that, having had made the decision that that's who and how you want to be, and actively putting that into place. Um, yeah, it's it's um it's very interesting. I'm seeing with the fact that it is a seven,
Hmm.
and it makes this space one of the most wonderful spaces to manifest in if you understand the space that you're in.
But the seven is one of the hardest numbers for people. And I hesitate to say hardest because it really depends on the emotional and spiritual space that the person is in. Um, if you're comfortable operating in spirit, operating with that unknown piece, that hidden piece, if you're comfortable in reading the signs and trusting and tapped in, then you will make the adjustment or you will flourish. If that is not your comfort, then you will be challenged. Um, you'll be challenged because this is not the time for force,
Mm.
not on the physical.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this is. I said it in our last conversation. This is like the spirit world. Let's just come present, right?
Yes.
And
Hmm.
it's just fully here now. So it's gonna be a whole bunch of just wild and really cool. Well, for me, I think of them as cool things. Some of y'all are gonna disagree, but overall, I look forward to a lot of the changes that are going to be taking place, but there are going to be a lot of intense things regardless to whether they're enjoyed or not, because it's a transition that's taking place. And this year, I've said a lot in my magical messages, the weekly tarots, that this year we're preparing. It is like that final, any last little alignment things you need to do, gear up for what's about to come in this next stage. And I mean, we've already kind of seen it. This year's just gotten started, and we can already see the energies and the frequencies they're wanting to bring up in people, at least in the United States. Um, Within just the last, I think, what, week? I don't even think it's been past that, and I've heard of at least 3 people being horrendously murdered. And the way that they're going about it, we know the kind of emotions that get stirred up, we know the kind of things that get stirred up. And just like we're manifesting and learning how to power up in our manifestations, it's another side to that as well. So be mindful of the energies and the frequencies you entertain. It doesn't mean that it's not messed up. It doesn't mean that it's not a horrendous thing. It doesn't mean that it's not, whatever it is that you would describe many events that are coming up or that have recently happened to be. But it does mean that you have to guard your own self, because in them putting out certain things, they're really pushing you to give up a certain part of your own power that allows for them to move and do things that we don't no one wants to really see take place. And so it's a year to be mindful of the world that you're in. It's not the world that it happened, and it's never going back to what it happened. So learning to manifest this year, and during this period, and period, learning to have that discipline to let go is going to be important, period, because you're not going to be able to be attached to things like you had been, and thrive. You're going to find yourself coming up against obstacles. So yeah.
Hmm. I was just thinking about what you were saying, and they talk about um, when you think you have a plan, spirit laughs at you, and it laughs because when we talk about this being a spiritual year, there's going to be a lot of revealing that's been taking place anyway, but more revelation. And really, what's important is not what's being revealed, outside in the media and all of that. That's crazy in and of itself. What is important is that we're paying attention to what's being revealed to us about us, um, to me about me. That is the piece that is going to be um, life bringing, because the things that are coming up for you now are those things that need to be released. If you've been doing the work, it is the emptying out of cycles and fresh starts. If you have been resistant, it is the revealing of more work. And work isn't a bad thing.
No.
It's not a bad thing.
No.
Because it empowers us when we're willing to move, through and change. And, going back to being intentional and being willing to stay open, leave room for the magic to happen, leave room um, for your own magical experience. Everything doesn't have to be and can't be nailed down.
Mm-hmm. You're not supposed to know everything.
You're not supposed to know everything, and what's the fun?
Yeah, and knowing everything.
In planning out every detail or stressing yourself out
Trying to.
and blaming yourself because you don't have every detail.
Mm-hmm.
Or making stuff up because your ego says, well, you're supposed to have every detail. I speak for myself. I have had to learn to love myself more deeply. And part of loving myself more deeply is not imposing foreign ideas and foreign rules on what my inner world looks like. I have to have this answer to what this looks like, or I have to know what this is. No, what I need to know is to be really clear about how I want to feel, how I want to feel in my life, how I want my environment to feel, how do I want to feel inside of my body, what experiences do I want to have, what experiences do I want to create, and allow that seed to give birth to the other pieces.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that is discipline, especially in a time where you want everything right now, and I want to order a baby with green eyes and wavy straight hair, and you know what I'm saying, whatever those things are that we get into, allowing space for magic.
Because magic happens in the mysteries. It happens in those dark places. It happens in, and dark not being bad or negative or anything like that, but the unknown. It happens in those spaces, so you have to leave room for that. Because if you fill in all the spaces, there's no room for creativity or anything else to come in because you've taken up
creativity.
nothing. You done filled up all the spaces. Every piece. There's no room for anything else to grow, to transform, to do anything.
Now, if you see,
be different.
If you get the picture, if you get it dropped and it's full and you have all the details, and that's happened with me before, where I saw the whole thing and felt it, then you nurture that. Then you pull that vision up, and regardless to what is going on, that is what you are seeing. But that's going to be an important and vital piece in this next, 3 weeks, 3.5 weeks, to be tapped in with this experience with me, with my skin, it really called on me to kind of ignore what I may have been seeing on the outside and tapping into what I needed to do on the inside to heal and how I needed to change. What it is that I needed to do differently, not just in what I was eating, but what I was holding. And so it's been a process, because I tell you, there was some nights where I questioned if I needed to go to the doctor. And I don't go
to the
doctor. I am my best doctor. I may go, in an emergency situation, obviously, for a diagnosis sometimes. But in maintaining and, basic healing, I'm my own best doctor.
Yeah.
And so for me to be at a place where I'm like, okay, do I need to, and so being able to tap back into that space of what you know and what you want to experience, as well as remembering that everything that you've gone through, everything that you've learned is your bag of tricks.
Yeah.
Those are your tools, your power.
I was literally about to say something.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so I'm pulling on, all of the times that I've spoken with people, sat with people, clients, and assisted them, and, and myself. And I'm thinking, I got this. I can do this. I was built for this. I've been prepared for this. And so that's also how we have to come into a 7-year, is really understanding that everything that you have experienced, everything that you've learned, everything that's come into your sphere is your preparation for the 7-year. It's also a time of releasing everything that keeps you weighed down. Emotionally, those old hurts that you refuse to forgive, you can't carry that into a 7-year.
Yeah.
You will be called personally to deal with your resistance to unforgiveness, and it could come in many forms. It could come in the form of your health. It could come in the form of business. It could come in many forms. And so, it's key that we deal with those old hurts. And maybe we feel like, I've been doing my work and I've done it. And the test of whether we have completed, whether we have really, exercised those pains, is going to be in what comes up for us, in terms of our household, our health, our business. Those things that come up will be revealing and telling as to what it is our life, our bodies are saying is needed.
Yeah. It's interesting because forgiveness had been such a huge lesson for me in the since the beginning of the year and
Of this year or last year?
of this year.
Okay.
Just that being highlighted, and I thought in many ways I had, and and learning. I mean, in some ways I had, but there were areas where I changed the way that I thought about it, or the way that I felt about it, but it wasn't necessarily forgiveness. And so just speaking to that piece, that forgiveness piece is a very important piece, especially when you are trying to manifest this in part because your own emotional or mental blockages or spaces, regardless of whether they're good or bad, they have an impact on what it is that you even feel the need to allow for.
Yeah.
Right? Your dream more than likely, or the thing that you think is the best thing, really has nothing at all on the thing that really is. Soska.